Really, really nice to be here, firstly. And really, it's great to see that all of you have taken time out from your careers. I do know most of you come here with a lot of work experience to reinvest in yourself. That's a great win, and that's a great start. That's something we should continue doing throughout our careers. That's something that I've also done and I keep doing. So as you all know, I did start off with an MBA from IIM Bangalore. Throughout the last 20 years, I've tried to either learn via taking different kind of assignments, being very, very open to different experiences, or I've also invested in a few courses, or the companies that I've worked for have invested in me by sending me to some very nice courses. Some of them which have really shaped me, and I put them out here. One was the Competitive Intelligence Certification. This was in Boston, US. And why I called this out was this really taught me how to think very differently. Very early on in my career, it showed me how industries keep changing, how the landscape keeps changing. You know, there might be a monopoly one day in our industry, and tomorrow it might just get very, very competitive. And what those drivers could be. So there are also several books by this institute. So it was an amazing training. The third one that I put over here, and it's got nothing to do really with, excelling per se, just with a skill or a career. It's more about how you manage your life. It's called Corporate Athlete, and it was started by people who wrote the book Powerful Engagement. So I read this book. It was very inspiring, and that's how I really live my life as well. Very simply put, all of us have very busy lives. You know, to be able to give our best to work, to family, and stay fit mentally and physically, you really need to take out time for yourself as well, for your mental harmony, for happiness and physical fitness. You can't achieve anything if any one of these things are lacking, if you're unhappy or if you're not fit. So that's something I've followed, I think, for the last 15 years now, 15 or at least 14 years. And more recently, around 4 years back, I completed a staggered 2-year program with Wharton Business School. That was also very interesting because nearly after 1.5 decades or 15 years, I was going back, sitting in a classroom, listening to professors who had very rich industry insights. And it was a very interesting way of learning for me, via case studies, via examples. And after having worked for so long, I could actually reapply the concepts and think. And I think I came out much richer. And that's why I feel you guys are quite privileged that you've taken out time mid-career to invest in this course, because with your foundation, where you've already worked a little bit, I'm sure you guys are appreciating what you're learning in the classroom a lot more now. I'll not bore you with all of these, it's a heavy slide, but I did want to give you a quick perspective. I've worked in 6 companies, but I've been very lucky that while I've worked in 6 companies, I've also had very diverse industry backgrounds. So I've got exposure to both FMCG, FMCD. I've got exposure to commodities like oleochemicals, which are very volatile. And as a finance person, that experience was very enriching. I've also worked on medical devices as well as medical services. So to be able to pack all of that in 20 years, I just feel that, yes, I've been lucky to get that kind of experience. Also because I've been a risk taker, so I never shied away whenever my boss came up and said, Richa, would you want to look at this assignment? I was always very eager to push my limits, to test my boundaries and really deliver whatever I was taking on. And I still do that. And that's something I would want you guys to reflect upon and see how risk averse are you, or how willing you are to take on risk, especially early in your careers. Now, within the companies, yes, I've had the privilege of working on acquisitions. I've had the privilege on, looking at how mergers go, streamlining, just going and doing a M&A deal is very easy, but making it work and really delivering that synergy is very critical. So I've had the privilege of working on that. I've been on the board of joint ventures when I was at P&G. I've also worked on a startup, and that's a whole different story. I'll talk about it in a bit. And now I'm back into a CFO role. As a contemporary CFO, not restricted to simply bookkeeping and managing budgets, but really partnering very closely with my business leader and the business team to see how Mars Wrigley can grow 2x, 3x, 4x in India in a profitable and sustainable way. So that's been my career journey in a nutshell. Moving on, what I do want to emphasize to all of you. As Indians, I think most of us over here today in the session would be Indians. We grow up in a culture of wanting to, accomplish something. We are recognized by which school we go to, which college we get into, and we get into that madness. And we approach our career and our career journey in the same way. I want all of us to remember, career is a part of your life. It can never be the only thing in your life. What makes your life complete is when you balance it. And for every person, the balance is different, right? For me, career is just a part of my life. I fill my life with a lot of time with my family and kids. I focus on my health. I do make sure I'm working on something that I'm passionate about that's giving me happiness. I do try and celebrate each and every moment with my family while I'm at work, whether it's just having a cup of tea with my teammates or a bunch of chocolates, given where I work today. And yes, I take out time to read. A lot of it ends up being multitasking. Maybe I'm listening to a podcast while I'm driving. Maybe I'm picking up a book on the way to some travel, or sitting with my kids so that they feel that I'm around and yet sort of glued on to reading something while I make them read on something as well. Over to you guys. I want the session to be as fun as interactive as possible. So look forward, and we'll be happy to talk more about any particular aspect if you want.
Thank you so much, Richa. That was really enlightening to know your journey. It's really, really fascinating. So I would really like to know, what are your thoughts on the evolving role of a CFO? The function is evolving. It's not bookkeeping or, managing budgets, as you said. It's more of strategy, and you take care of pricing also and look at the market entry also. So how do you think it has evolved in the last, 2 decades, and how are you doing to keep up with the evolving nature of the role?
Yes, Bhavna, you already said quite a bit of it, that yes, the new role of CFO is all about making the business sustainable and profitable, partnering with your business leaders on strategy, pricing, market entry. So it's not just bookkeeping and budgeting. It's a lot tougher, I would say, to be a good finance person early on in your career. Soak yourself with the various business functions. So the way I've been able to manage or make sure that I'm doing justice to my job today, and I'm not just seen as an accountant or a bookkeeper, is throughout my career I've actually been out there. I've balanced my work between sitting in office and looking at the Excel sheets, and actually going out in the market, working with the sales team, or going down doing plant visits, understanding what works, what drives my costs, what are the challenges people at the plant face, spending time with the demand planning team or the supply team. So basically what I'm saying, whenever you're working with a business, try to understand that business. Try to relate to different people across the functions to understand what is it that they really do. A lot of times we feel that, my role is the toughest, and oh God, this is the toughest assignment. Everyone else is having it so easy. Versus doing that, everyone has challenges. Go and try and understand them. That'll make you a better person. The other good aspect that I see that's developing really fast and really, really can take the load off the finance team is the technology development. Whether you call it big data analytics, or you call, the fintech solutions coming in from the banks, or those nice dashboards, which are now the Power BI, etc. So all that is making the job easier, but it's a journey for the finance people and everyone. You all know this. Most of you would be far more tech savvy and computer savvy than me. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So the whole onus of making sure that what's going into these algorithms and tools and dashboards that we are building comes on finance. So we are not yet, at least in India, where I see, or even globally, We haven't reached a point where everything is so streamlined that the data is going in correctly without a validation or check. So it's a journey. Of course, over the next few years, we'll all stabilize. It'll get a lot more streamlined, and probably it'll also then help us free up some of the resources from very monotonous work. But as of now, I do bank on my junior team of analysts who are just starting off from campus or the fresh chartered accountants to make sure that they're proofreading this data, right? I cannot allow the system to pick up the data and no one doing a cross check whether the systems are picking up the right data. So yes, life is getting easier, but it's going to take some time. As a CFO, a lot of my work is now automated. Bookkeeping, revenue recognition, accounting entries. We've got lovely robotics everywhere. You send an email saying that this is how much I'm spending out of this budget, and there's a program which will scan your email and pass the journal entry, right? But I will not say that that eliminates the human interface completely. Proofreading or checking whether the entry was passed correctly still needs to be done. At the end of the month, I still need a qualified pool of chartered accountants working with me to make sure that the trial balance or the P&L and the balance sheet is all making sense. So I do not see the role of finance, and I'm addressing it even before this question comes because it comes often. Will the role of finance diminish or go away? I don't think so. It'll get easier. You will still need to put on your intelligence and knowledge of all the financial, techniques and skills, including accounting, to validate this data. At the same time, everyone would be freed up to go and learn more about the business, the core, maybe about delivering better cost management projects, right? So there's more that a human can now do given technology is supporting us.
That's really amazing to know, and I love the fact that you said, fintech is evolving now, and the fintech is coming to the picture, so all the functions are evolving as well. I mean, you have two CAs hosting you today, so I'm really relieved to know that our roles are not going to get diminished in the coming decade, because that's one of our biggest concerns. So if I had to ask you, in the evolving fintech space, what are the three most important key skills, not just finance people, but anybody who wishes to enter the fintech space, should take from the MBA from them, or develop to, evolve in the space and to grow?
Right, you're all management students, so I don't expect many of you to be going back into coding or, working on blockchain algorithms, etc. You will be front facing some functions, maybe working with clients. So definitely the first skill is people or networking that you'll definitely need, whether to be successful in implementation of a fintech solution in-house or selling it to someone. So really that cracking a deal or being able to relate to people is one. Along with that, a very solid understanding of the business or industry you are working with to be able to come up with the right solutions. Suppose you're working in the FMCG consumer space, or you're going to meet clients in the consumer durables, consumer facing industries. You will need to understand that so that you can build a strong connect between your technical teams and your business to be able to provide the right solutions. Because at the end of it, what is technology doing? You are the one, you have to decide that, okay, this is the challenge that my client is facing, and this is how I can solve it with technology. So that ability to understand business does not go away simply because there's something called technology. It's still very basic. It might sound like, okay, oh God, there's a blockchain solution now, but at the end of it, it's all solving something very, very simple, right? And thirdly, then yes, you have to be also technically savvy and really understand which options are evolving, what is available, and come up with solutions for your company and for your clients which don't get redundant. Try to see where assimilation is happening. My challenge today is you have too many people offering different solutions, right? I cannot pick up a solution that the masses will not embrace tomorrow. Specifically for my retailers, if I have a company coming and telling me that why don't you embrace this, and this is what we'll offer, The solution might be great, but if it has not been scaled up, it's not going to help me in any way, because I might do a hard pitch and sell that solution to my distributors and retailer. Tomorrow it's going to be obsolete after I have spent so much money. So being externally aware, having a good connect with people, the base fundamentals, and really understanding the business you're selling to or you're working in.
So thank you so much, Richa. That was very insightful. So my next question would be, you have moved from the corporate world to a startup scene, and now you're again back into the corporate world. Now I understand that each transition must have involved a set of transferable skills from one function or one role to another. So how was it like to move back to the current role from the startup role that you had earlier, and how different was it this time re-entering the corporate space after working in a startup and scaling it up?
Right. So let me just step back a little bit and first tell you how the transition was to a startup. So my first transition to a startup environment was within Philips while I was still a part of a larger corporate. That's when I was heading Philips Healthcare at home. And I would say that was a comfortable space because I had the backing or the branding of a large brand like Philips, yet the ambiguity of a startup. The biggest challenge that a startup poses is hiring people because you don't have any brand, right? And people come to those employers whom they're comfortable with, they feel there's some stability. What I really started enjoying back at Philips was that, yes, I had the right people and there was so much to do. In a startup, you really wear different hats. You do different roles. You will be the marketing person, the sales head, everything together. Something goes wrong in supply, the truck hasn't moved. I remember in Philips at night, 2 o'clock also, I would get calls that we can't move the medical device, this is happening. So that's what a startup does to you. Now, so that transition, of course, I loved. I'm a very passionate person with huge amounts of energy. When I moved into Nine, I carried that with me. I picked up a lot of skills. I was a marketing person. I was an HR person. I read a lot. I took a course in marketing. I read a lot of marketing books because that was important to really get people to go and try buying a pack of Nine. I also did a lot of sales, working in the field with the salespeople. And my biggest learning was what really runs a startup is trust and passion. People were joining Nine not because of Nine. People were joining Nine because of the people who were heading Nine, which was me and some of the other people I had hired, getting inspired by us that, okay, here are people who worked in the industry and let's trust them to take us somewhere. So it gives you an immense sense of accountability that I need to take care of this team. It becomes almost like a family. Let's grow together. And just a correction, Bhavna. So yes, we took it to a market share of 10 to 12% in select markets in North and East where we had launched earlier. All India share was around 5% around the time 3-4 months back when I left the company. But yes, in 3 years, that was commendable. And it was really, I would say, we will do it, we'll win, the passion, the trust, the fire in the belly that got us there. Now, coming back to corporate is what Shivna asked me. I will say it was tough. And the first 1 month, I was, for the last 4.5 years, I was this person who was doing it all, right? I was doing marketing, sales, looking after production. And now I was back into a very large machinery where I was supposed to just look at finance. So the first 1 month was trying to curtail my energy, settling back into a role and focusing on my core. That was one. And secondly, it was finding a new balance for myself as well. That how do I still stay very motivated and productive and help the business, not hands-on as a multitasker, but more as a finance person. So moving back into a more strategic and into a more stewardship kind of a role to find ways to influence different people who were now driving it. I could not be the marketing head, but as a finance person, I could probably pick up a way to influence him to do what I feel is right and what is right for the business. So the key change that happens is if you're heading a startup, you do it all yourself. If you move back into a large corporate, you need to re-hone your influencing skills and collaborative skills to be able to steer the ship where it needs to be.
Yes, so I think that is a very important point that you raised about rehoning your skills according to the role and the function that you are. So I'll just extend my next question and take it from there. So if there are people who will be making transitions post MBA, we have people with a certain kind of domain and industry experience, and post MBA they would be transferring it into some other vertical or some other industry. So for those who are ready to make such transitions, what is this one trait that you recommend that should be common wherever you work? You should have this one individual and one professional trait, which would be your differentiator. So what kind of trait do you recommend for such people?
This is for all. In the first month in your job, whenever you're going, even if you're switching industry or not, humility. See, people who are there, for all right reasons, do feel that they're doing it right, and that's why the company exists at that stage. So be humble. And the second one, that's on the personal front. On the professional front, be a hungry learner. First month, just sit back, listen, learn, and align this with your manager that this is going to be my task for the first month. Don't get into the pressure of delivering. You might just end up ruffling too many feathers. Stay humble, stay open, listen, and learn. That's about it.
I think we all are really trying hard to do that. Even in our MBA, I mean, all we are expected to do is learn and imbibe and absorb as much as we are getting. It's a whole load of information, but it's just, I think it's up to us on how to sift through the content and, find what is the best for us and then grow from it. So I think that's a really important point to raise, Richa. I want to talk about a little about your startup. I mean, how did you, what motivated you to join Nine? It's such a fascinating concept in the in the industry. I mean, where products are so highly priced, especially in the personal care domain or the feminine hygiene products domain. And what did you do to increase that market share? I mean, from a finance person, you went to being a core marketing person because a startup needs those kind of people skills and marketing skills, right? You took up a lot of courses. So what motivated you to join that space, and what did you exactly do in the startup? Did you get funding for it, and how did you manage to approach the investors?
Okay, so while I was pursuing the Wharton course, I ran into Amar, who was the founder of Nine, and he shared his concept and idea with me, and he wanted me to come on board as a consultant or an advisor. I was with Philips that time, so I did declare it with Philips, and there was no conflict of interest. It was a very different category, so Philips allowed me to work weekends and help him out. 2 years later, while I was heading Philips Healthcare at home, and Nine was ready to be born, that's when Amar and I talked again, and Amar asked me to come on board full time as a CEO. So that's how it really happened. I was already in a business role, so moving into another business role was but natural for me. I didn't have any concerns on that. But why I took the risk of joining a startup really is more a personality thing. I've always been a person who stretched myself. I like testing my boundaries, and somewhere deep inside, I had always worked for very large companies. Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola. I mean, these are 100, 200-year-old brands. And somewhere I felt it's too easy. What am I doing? Can I create something like this on my own? Do I have it in me? Will I be able to do it? So that was the driver. I did want to create something of my own, and it was a win-win for me. I didn't have the financial, bandwidth to take on a startup. He was funding it. He wanted me to support him in his dream, and it made perfect sense. And I feel really proud that I did it. I feel really, really great. It taught me so much. It taught me the power of infusing passion in people. It taught me a lot about marketing, and it taught me that once there's passion in people, people go all out to do things. We were working, I won't say 24/7, but pretty much 18 hours a day sometimes. And in larger companies, you hear that, oh, I'm tired, I've been out on a road trip. We were on road trips all the time. Nobody said we are tired. So it was that fire that drove it. Of course, after 3 years, when Mars came, I did feel it's time to take a break. I had worked very, very hard and I did want some space back. And I had reached a point where I did want to come back into some stability in my career, some comfort of a large setup, while still carrying that passion to drive growth further. So Mars is a comparatively small company in India. Globally, it's a mammoth. Globally, it's a very, very big company. So our dream is to take Mars to a bigger space in India.
Shivna, over to you.
Yes, Richa. So it was very fascinating to hear about your journey and why you decided to move to Mars after working so hard that time. And we have close to 34 women in our batch. And eventually, we expect all of us to be in some kind of a leadership role. So, and I have gone through your profile. We all understand that you have worn many hats. So, is there any particular advice you have for women who will be leaders of tomorrow? Not for just our batch, for people, or that's a very general few things to say.
See, I would say firstly, what I'm going to say applies to everyone, to men over here as well as women. When you are at work, just carry yourself very professionally. And I do know the girls today, especially your generation and women here, are very comfortable speaking their mind. If you are not, get comfortable doing that. Don't think about yourself that, oh, I'm a woman sitting in a group of 10 men. Or even for men, there might be occasions where you are the only man in a group of 8 or 10 women sitting in a meeting room, depending on which industry you go to. So let's get over the gender biases or gender fear, and let's just be ourselves wherever we are. Secondly, see, life is all about choices. Again, if I'll open this to both men and women, increasingly, especially in our niche where we are more educated, there are dual careers, right? In dual careers, it's tough to manage a balance. Before you get married, if you're not already married, have this dialogue with your spouse. How will you manage career conflicts? If your company moves you to a particular location, would you guys be open on a split family setup? Or would one of you be willing to take a back seat? Where does career stand for you in your life? This is what causes friction. This is what causes a lot of women to drop out later. It's really your choice. There's nothing right or wrong. It's okay to settle down with a man and say that your career would be the one we will bank on and yours would be the lead career. I'm okay to make these sacrifices. Vice versa, it's okay for a man if the woman is doing very well at her job. It's okay for him to take a backseat for a year or two and not have a very fulfilling assignment, and he can pursue some other passion during those 2-3 years. But these are choices where you have to very, very openly and freely discuss with your companion. And the second biggest choice that becomes, I won't say a derailer, but really changes the game for women especially, and sometimes for a man, is parenthood. Right? You bring a little child, a little baby into this world. It's your responsibility to nurture and raise them. How you do it really depends on what equation both of you strike. And there are a lot of couples these days who decide not to have children. It is a choice. You can't have it all, no matter how much you tell yourself. It might seem like I have it all, but no, I've made a lot of compromises in my career. Staying in India and not pursuing a global career has been one decision because of my family. I look after my parents and we've decided to be in India. When my kids were, I have twin boys, when my kids were 3-year-old, I did take 1.5 years off because I felt my kids were not connecting with me. And one of my kids did say, Mama, we don't really know you, you're never around. And that hit very hard, and I took 1.5 years off. Maybe I would have been in a larger company, in a larger role somewhere, but I'm not, but I'm very happy with it because this is my balance. You never know if Some people have it a lot easier. Some people have it a little tougher. One of my kids also has some learning challenges. So yes, that means I spend more time with him. Not just time, I mean, it requires more financial resources to raise such a child. So all I'm trying to say is make your choices carefully if you really want a long-term career. And life doesn't go as per plan. I'll also say that. Wherever your life ends up, you fall in love and you just want to marry that man or that woman, go ahead, do it. But don't regret about it later. Live your life, right? It's okay if you can't be the CEO tomorrow and you're happy just being a vice president when you retire. Whatever life brings to you, enjoy it. That's what life is meant for.
I mean, thanks a lot.
I see Mayank raising his hand.
Yeah. Okay. Before we open the floor for Q&A, I just want to mention that you really spoke about being resilient, as a leader. I think that's one of the most important qualities now we have, and you have shown it in your life also. On a lighter note, what's your favorite chocolate which is not from Mars, really?
Really, Lindt. If it's not from Mars, actually, I love Snickers, Galaxy, all of it. But I love Lindt hazelnut.
Okay. I think we're going to keep that in mind now.